Well, hello, everybody. Dr. David Haase here.
Hello.
Dr. Mark Lickey. And we're here today to have a talk about brain and health and some things you haven't been thinking of, possibly. So good to see you.
Yeah.
And good to be with you.
Good to be with you.
It's really always great to be with somebody who's more handsome than I am in one of these, because I need that's my candy to really bring out the crowd.
Thank you. Yeah. So. Happy to be the eye candy. That's something I haven't been called before, I don't think.
I'm there for you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
One of the things what I love about MaxWell is that we have a lot of fun. We just honestly have a lot of fun.
Maybe you do. I don't ever have any fun here.
Well, that's your problem. So we have a lot of good times in the break room and a lot of good chat back and forth.
We do. And we get some things done around here too.
And we do. Yeah,
every once in a while.
Yeah. And so I think what that is, that being the change you want to see in the world, right? We really want to see people be healthy and be alive and enjoy their life. And we're glad we get to do this kind of work together. So the topic we want to talk about today is how central the brain is to all of health, and really give you some ideas about, how could you look at your own health maybe in a different way and find some new solutions to problems that are really central to what's going on. Because the question is, what are brain problems? And one of the ideas that MaxWell has really always been about is that the brain is central to all of health. And so, people go like, well, wait a second, isn't the brain just a problem with neurodegeneration and dementia, which we have a lot of work going on. We have a new trial starting up with using a precision systems medicine approach to treat dementia. That's very exciting, but we treat lots of patients with that anyway. So people think about dementia and things like that as a brain problem, and think of maybe depression and anxiety as brain problems. But there may be some other things that you may not think of as brain problems.
Yeah. We see all sorts of things that play into this, and all sorts of things that we don't necessarily think of as brain problems, because our brain's so connected to the rest of our body, whether it's our gut or whatever. It's more of a systemic issue.
Mm-hmm. So that even the problem with somebody not going to bed on time, it can be a brain problem.
Yeah.
Because they don't necessarily get sleepy in the way that they need to get sleepy. And then they don't go to bed. So therefore, their lifestyle starts this feed forward cascade problem forward. Their brain doesn't clean up like it needs to during deep sleep. And now they really get into a vicious cycle where the sleep is a problem and it's hurting the brain, but the brain has its challenges. So you can't get into sleep. And so where do you start?
Well, I always start with the basic lifestyle stuff. Things like sleep, keep the brain healthy, but also we got to keep the brain active. And part of keeping the brain active is keeping the body active. There was a study quite a while ago. It looked at women. I don't know why they only looked at women in this study, but women who did walking regularly and women who did not walk regularly. And the women who walked regularly had a much lower incidence of dementia.
Walking, that's so high tech.
Yeah, high tech stuff.
High tech. Yeah. And so unavailable. So difficult to find the walk. Somehow
I managed to get outside today and walk, even though that was so difficult.
And so, but that is something that isn't that fascinating, that brain problems are often treated with body interventions, and body problems are often treated with brain interventions. Because I think when obesity, somebody is having challenges with regard to their making good choices in their life. It's been amazing to me how often that's actually an underlying anxiety disorder that's kind of being covered up. A depressive problem because there's just no joie de vivre in life, or an attentional disorder because it's hard to keep a mind on the plan that you were going to engage. It can be a stress issue because that's you just get overwhelmed and you want to have some kind of a break in your life. But if your brain isn't very healthy, you're going to experience stress more. And I think this comes down to this really interesting idea that your brain is its own problem, right? You can only see the solutions in front of you that your brain is going to let you see. And I always think of this that, each of us are kind of trapped inside our own brain.
We are. I mean, we only have, well, I guess we can put it this way. We don't know what we don't know. And, until we have some additional information on things that we haven't ever heard before, we can't do anything about it.
Yep. Yeah. We don't know what we don't know, and we can't. And how do we learn what we don't know?
Well, that's a complicated question.
Okay. Well,
I mean, sometimes we're limited in what we can know. We're limited in what we can learn because our brain is stuck. And there are things that we can do to get our brains unstuck. So that's some of the things that we do here. Things like neurofeedback and plasma exchange can help our brain get unstuck. Ketamine. So there's options of things that can get our brain working better.
I like how you call it stuck, right? Because stuckness is something I think everybody we can all identify with. At some point in our life, we've been stuck about something.
Yeah.
And when your brain is stuck, it can be from a lot of different causes, right? I have my systems neurology type S's that I love to talk about, because the problem is that the brain is, you can, whatever you actually think about the brain through the perspectives of what you know. So if you happen to be somebody who loves psychology, then you're going to be really interested in the story, right? What's all the background of the meaning behind life. If you're really into spirituality, then everything may be around the thoughts of your spiritual path. If you really love genetics, then everything's going to be about genetics. If everything's about lifestyle, then all the solutions will be about lifestyle. If you're really into family systems, then you're going to think about how sociologists would look at things and look at those complex problems. And there's three that we really focus, that we have a lot of impact on here, is that when you're stuck, be that a neurodegenerative process or a mood disorder, or even things like ADHD or sleep, stress, all of those things, we come at it from the standpoint of soup, spark, and stem cells. And soup, it's kind of a funny thing to think about. Soup is like you take that brain and cut it open and see what oozes out, right? That's all the...
Not literally.
Well, no, not literally. Not yet. Not yet.
Hard to put that egg back together.
It would be. Well, what are some of the things that would ooze out? What would be the soup of the brain that we investigate?
Yeah. So, neurotransmitters and hormones and different proteins that our brain has, things that are good and sometimes things that are not so good.
Toxins, things like lead, mercury, mold toxicity.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. The amount of people who are walking around with brain fog and really cognitive decline because of water damaged buildings or mold in their environment. We just make buildings way too tight nowadays.
Yeah.
They don't breathe like they used to.
Yeah. I saw a patient today, patient who's struggling with neurocognitive issues, and their house got in the middle of all the water damage in Katrina.
Oh. So
probably contributed to some of the neurocognitive decline, but there's some genetic issues there too. So it's complicated. It's not just one thing.
Yeah, and things like, what are the good things you need to bring in your soup? Things like omega-3 fatty acids. Fish oils are one of these components that are just incredibly important when it comes to the function of every single facet of brain function. So if you can look at depression, having the higher the amount of omega-3 fatty acids you have in your red blood cells, the less depression one has, the less ADHD one has, the less dementia one has, and actually, a decrease all-cause mortality. So that's one of the soup pieces that are really important to dig into, no matter what is actually going on. Other soup things. I'm always interested in like the immune system, right? The immune system is bathing the brain. So many people have food sensitivities, that you eat if you eat this, you eat super clean. Wow, my brain is clear. And if you
see that a lot, you see people getting off gluten, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, I can think better.
Yeah.
I mean, they feel better overall, but a lot of times it's affecting their brain. So.
And gluten, I mean, that's something so simple that you can do. If you haven't run that experiment in your own life, I mean, I was very funny. I've been running those experiments with people in healthcare for about 25 years now. And I remember even up to 10 years ago when I was talking to people about changing their diet to change the way they function, the way they feel, how incredulous that would be. There's a book that came out. It Starts with Food by Dallas Harwig. He's a physical therapist, a friend of mine in functional medicine, and everything kind of changed after that. It was a New York Times bestseller. A whole bunch of people said, well, maybe my diet does make a difference. And
people are definitely seeing that more and more.
That's a great book to pick up. It's a good kind of a do-it-yourself elimination diet to trial. And so that's another soup. Hormones you brought up. Hormones are really powerful, and it always amazes me. Hormone. What is a normal hormone level?
Well, normal or optimal?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, normal varies.
Yeah.
So,
and how do you even determine what is normal?
I don't know. I think you're going to tell me.
No. It's one of these questions I never really found a good answer to, so I wanted to find somebody.
I don't know if I've got the answer to that.
No, I think hormones are a kind of a philosophical problem. Because it really depends about what you believe about health, as far as what you're going to assign as being normal, right? So there's people who believe that, wow, I want to be as healthy as I can possibly be into my 70s and 80s and 90s, right? So let's optimize my hormone levels like it would be a 30-year-old. And I think there's a lot of credit to that idea. There's a tremendous amount of credit. And then there's some people who, especially like with women's hormones, think about, well, is menopause something that should be? And, should we not mess with hormones and add hormones in? And, so there's some very strong philosophical beliefs that go on with the soup. I'm always amazed by that. And then I think one of the challenges is that the data is pretty clear. Estrogen is really good for your brain.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've noticed, this was before I ever was in the world of functional medicine, that women who were on estrogen replacement therapy, their brains just work better. I mean, it's just across the board. It was something that I noticed before I ever really knew about all of this stuff. My mom's on hormone replacement, and her brain still works pretty well. Of course, she's also a Jeopardy fan. She's been watching Jeopardy for the last 45 years.
That's amazing. Thank you, Alex.
Yes.
That's great. I think that there's so many interesting, things about how do we support the brain, and other things of soup even have to go with fats. Like fats are really important because the fat is
sheath around our nerves.
Yeah, it's like, I don't remember what the percent weight of fat the brain is.
It's pretty high.
It's really high.
Yeah.
It's a big ball of fat.
Well, and if we look back in especially like the 80s and even the 90s, it's like, oh, we need to be on a really low fat diet. And that was probably not very good for our brains.
And the 2000s as well.
Yeah.
That was very.
But now we know more about fats, and it's like, we need the healthy fats. So where do we get those from? I mean, besides a pill, avocados, nuts and seeds, fatty fish, olive oil. I mean, those are kind of, I always run those off with my patients because those are kind of like your four main sources of good fats. So we gotta keep the brain working, and so we gotta have good fats for it to be making that part of our brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a third of the dry weight of the brain is DHA. So, it's omega-3 fatty acids, a very long chain, and it's a profound amount, which is very interesting. It's a hard fat to get dietarily.
Yeah.
And so when you're inflamed, you actually use that same fat to make anti-inflammatory hormones. So inflamed brains start to have a decrease in the amount of this very important fat. So that's where inflammation starts to cause atrophy, or really, the shrinking of the brain itself. So inflammation goes into that. So that's soup, kind of think about that. Spark is another thing. Spark is your electrical activity. Your brain is an electrical organ. When we put the EEG cap on people, we measure the brain waves that are.
Wait, tell them what an EEG cap is.
You go ahead.
What it's doing.
Thank you.
It's basically a 19 lead cap. It's like a shower cap that we put on patients, and it measures the electrical activity of the different parts of your brain.
A lead?
A lead. Yeah, sorry.
What are leads?
It's the little the receptor. Is that the right word? I don't know. You tell me. You got to explain this better for people.
I know, right? This is good for us to keep checking each other. Yeah, so it looks like a shower cap, and these are little electrodes that just sense electricity that's coming off.
Sensor. That was
sensor.
The word
a sensor would be a better word.
Yes.
19 sensors, and that when we put that through our database, that actually localizes to 16,000 separate locations in the brain. So we can measure a vast amount of electrical information and make a map up of the brain. And those electrical brain maps, when we compare them against FDA registered databases of average normal brains, it's amazing. You can see the brain's function, and you can see where the brain is inefficient. And I think inefficiency of the brain is just amazing. Our brains consume so much energy in a day, right? I mean, they consume like 23% of all the calories we eat in a day. And it's also one of the reasons when your brain isn't working well, that you have hunger. I mean, if you're low on energy, literally biologic energy, that's going to raise your hunger signals. And so a brain that has poor efficiency isn't going to get as much work done for the same amount of biologic energy. And I think that it's very interesting to me how people can start to improve their weight and shape once their brain is healthier. And so the body kind of follows the brain in that domain. So, you're going to tell them a little bit about neurofeedback from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I was not familiar with neurofeedback until I came here to MaxWell Clinic. And I guess the way I look at it is it's brain retraining. If we have a brain that's being inefficient, then we can train the brain through neurofeedback. So you're getting basically positive feedback for things that your brain is doing correct, and negative, not shocks or anything like that, but negative feedback for things that your brain is doing that's inefficient. And so your brain finds a way around the inefficiencies. And I guess the way I look at it is like you've got roads that have turned into interstates that should be trails, and you've got trails that should be interstates. And so the neurofeedback just kind of gets things going in the right direction so that you're making bigger pathways in the more efficient ways that your brain should work, and smaller pathways of those less efficient ways. I don't know. Is that a good way?
I think it's awesome. Yeah, because neurons that fire together wire together. And we just know that whatever we practice, we get better at. And it's pretty remarkable to see the changes that happen in people's lives when their brain becomes more efficient. It's one of those really odd things that neurofeedback can help so many different things. If your problem is a wiring problem or a spark problem, then neurofeedback can be really, really useful. And I actually just saw a patient today, and I was blown away by this quantitative EEG, the brainwave map. There's actually structures to help give us a probability idea of, did this individual suffer from a head injury? And it's very interesting and incredibly powerful and intelligent and capable human that was just struggling from some challenges of mood and feeling overwhelmed and such like that. And it was made good sense because the brain was not as efficient as it needed to be. And here, this head injury index was just incredibly high, one of the higher ones I've seen in quite some time. And it made perfect sense with regard to her symptoms because, she had, incredible cognitive abilities, and her psychology was really healthy. Her spirituality was really healthy. Her biology was amazing. Her lab tests look amazing. And you're going like, wow, if all of those things are good, kind of like Sherlock Holmes, right? If you ruled out everything else, then what's left must be the answer. And I think that's true, except most of the time we don't look at in as many corners for what the causes are.
We like to go down the rabbit holes.
Well, if you're looking for rabbits, that's where you have to go. I mean, it makes me angry that if your people aren't well, don't give up. Just don't give up. The body is designed to heal, and we do this because we want to see people thrive, right? It's just so sad to me how many grandkids don't have like the full capabilities of their grandparents, or how many spouses aren't fully available there for their loved ones. And that brain problems they're not just the problem of the person, they're the problem of the entire community. Right. And I think I spent a lot of time thinking about individuals that have been incarcerated, and how many brain problems are going on there.
Probably an awful lot.
A lot. And could we have a much better world if we started to be curious about some of that and say, but man, this amazing case of an individual who was young and was had an incredible amount of opposition to her parents, let's just say that. Amazing levels. and attention problems. And with neurofeedback, her mom said that she's, quote, a different person. The family is completely different now that this individual that used to suck all the oxygen out of the room is now thriving, and she's happier too.
But yeah, just through changing those inefficient parts of the brain, that can change, not only things within the individual, but then it changes the relationships, which is a great thing because relationships are huge. We need relationships, and if we've got things that are in the way of us having healthy relationships, that's not good for anyone.
No. And it's that negative feed forward cycle. If you have a challenged brain, your relationships are challenged. You have challenged relationships. We know that, you're going to have more problems with your brain. You'll have more challenges of moving forward. So, the other thing is stem cells. Talk about, soup, spark, and then stem cells. And this is one I'm really excited about. And Dr. Lickey does a lot of work here as well. And stem cells are really what we get to affect when we're using therapeutic plasma exchange to help reverse cognitive decline. And it's really very interesting to try to think about how, dementia is a terrible, terrible challenge.
Yeah, it is. I've seen the results of that. I've done a lot of work with geriatrics. I've done a lot of work in assisted living facilities, and it is devastating, and it changes the person and who they are. And that's so devastating for both them and the family members and all the people around them. It's so sad to see people lose themselves.
And, there's been, I think now it's over 400 drugs have been trialed and have failed.
Yeah, we really just don't have anything that's had much effect. I mean, I spent 20 years in traditional medicine and, used those medications, and it just, we didn't really get anywhere with them. Mm-hmm. It was sad.
And there's a new one that's come out, but that has it has everybody's excited, it has about a 30% decrease in the rate of progression with this particular new medication. And but there's a lot of risk that you'll have leukoencephalopathy, right? Is that essentially incredible amounts of inflammation in the brain,
which is not what we want.
Yeah. Which is, can cause acute severe problems leading to death. And so everybody was so excited about a 30% change. But the AMBAR study that looked at plasma exchange and its effect on dementia had a over 60% decrease in the rate of progression in Alzheimer's disease. Over 14 months, 60%. And
yeah, that's huge. And when I was not aware of this, working in traditional medicine, and actually seeing something that makes that much difference, and then actually seeing it in action here has been amazing. It's really revolutionized the way I look at dementia. It's like we can do something, and the earlier we can get to it, the better. And that was what the AMBAR trial showed too. That a lot of times with patients with mild dementia, actually got a little bit better. Not with everybody, but there was a certain patient population that did get better.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I said to put this under the category of stem cells is because what we know about plasma exchange, we've also been involved with a very large research program discovering the underlying causes of longevity and how plasma exchange affects that. It turns out plasma exchange is incredibly useful at helping older stem cells in the body to behave younger. And if you can turn on body-wide stem cell activity, you're going to get more tissue repair overall. And then, because we think of dementia is really clearly an age-associated condition. So if we can start having more repair than degeneration, wow.
That's exactly what we need to do to reverse it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we start adding in, we add in the opportunities. Is that individual is having cognitive decline? Do they need plasma exchange? Do they need soup interventions? Do they need biological interventions, lifestyle interventions, neurofeedback? We do transcranial photobiomodulation, put energy into the brain. There's so many potential beneficial things. And so people should never give up hope. Never give up hope.
Yeah. And I think that's where so many people are, is that they have given up hope about this because they don't know what the options are. And I think in traditional medicine, there's really not a whole lot of options. Like, you take this medication or not, this medication may help maybe a little bit. And then it's like, well, it didn't work, so I guess there's nothing else to do. But that's not true.
And then that makes that's why denial is such a big thing with memory loss. If you know of anybody who is suffering from memory loss, they usually keep it a really deep, dark secret, right?
Them, and a lot of times their family members.
And their family members, because the belief that we can't do anything about it, then it's actually rational to deny that it's a problem, right?
Yeah.
Let's keep whistling past the graveyard. And there's really not an issue here. But once you know that, wow, there is the potential to make a difference, and you recognize that the quality of your life isn't just, you don't just live your life. You live the lives of all those people that you're connected to. another wonderful person in our life is this 90-year-old gentleman, and he's in a nursing home, but he is the light of his great-grandson's eyes. And the perspective that his great-grandson is getting about the value of hard work and this man pulling him up from his bootstraps and just the kindness and incredible love of elders. I mean, we have to preserve those things. They're worth preserving, and therefore it's worth being brave and getting over your denial that there's a problem present.
Yeah, and also as the disease of cognitive decline progresses, though, then you don't even know you have a problem. So then it becomes all the people around you. And yeah, if we can just say, you know what, this is a problem, let's see what we can do about it and give people hope.
Yeah. And one of our patients said it so well. He said, man, I'd rather invest in keeping my memory than waste my money in a memory care facility.
Oh, yes. Well, I've spent plenty of time in memory care units, not as a patient, but it's a very sad place. It is a very sad place. I mean, not only sadness. There's always joy that comes through every once in a while, but it's sad to see a lot of people in there who have lost so much of themselves. Yeah.
Wow. So I think kind of tie this up. It was funny. We've talked about all these different diseases. We talk about these different solutions, these multiple causes. And I think it's really, some people go like, well, wait a second, what do you do there at MaxWell Clinic? And we really are trying to engage individual humans and be as respectful as possible with what are the multiple causes that could be coming together for their single system, their single symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it is much more complex than is traditionally thought. Coming out of traditional medicine, it was kind of like one thing leads to one thing, and that's not the way it is. Our bodies are way too complex. How we relate to the world, how our world relates to us, it's pretty complex, and so you got to dig deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what we do here. We dig a little deeper.
So the in essence, because of individuality, the very same symptom in different people can come from different causes.
You bet.
And the very same, cause in different people
can cause different symptoms.
Can cause different symptoms.
Yep. Very true. And there's so many things that play into it. Whether it's genetics or environment or toxins or relationships, or there's so many things. And we know also a lot more about what stress does to the body. And there's so many things that stress does to the body. And so it's just looking at the downstream effect of different things and coming up with a plan that makes sense. I've always tried to practice medicine that makes sense. It's a little easier to do it now. More experience, and I have more tools. I get to play in the sandbox a lot more here.
Yeah. I think that's it's also important for people, wherever you are, if you're listening to this, just start where you are. Start where you are. I think one of the beautiful things is that things that are wholesome, because we already talked about, because we're individual, everything can be very complex, but also because everything's connected. Because everything is connected, the same solution can be beneficial for many different problems. It's like what you mentioned was stress. Take some time, take your socks and shoes off and go walk in the green grass. Take some nice deep breaths. Do those things you love. Because the bottom line is you are potent. Your body is created to heal. That's a fundamental premise upon everything we do here. That's our job is to help you identify those things that are going to help your body heal the best that it possibly can. So Yeah. So, well, any final words?
I think we've covered it.
I think we've got good foundations here. So for all of you out there, like I said, it looks like we have some question and answers here. Just want to make sure that we're, oh yeah. So therapies for people with brain injuries, that would be neurofeedback is profound, but also hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Hyperbaric oxygen is very helpful in individuals with TBI. And then also we refer out for specialized therapy for many people. So we have excellent therapists in other domains. We have an individual who had a stroke several years ago and had just plateaued and now has the opportunity, is actually getting better as a result of engaging neurofeedback, neurostimulation, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and doing a tune-up of his biology. So, I mean, we should never give up. Don't give up. The body can do incredible healing.
Yeah. I always thought that it's like once about 6 months had gone by after a stroke, what you had was what you're going to live with the rest of your life. And that's not true.
Mm-hmm. A question, what does gluten do to the brain? Take that one?
Well, I mean, gluten is pro-inflammatory. And so inflammation is bad for the brain. And then you've got the additional issue of all of our wheat with getting sprayed with glyphosate. That's not good for the brain either, unless it's organic. But you got to stay away from inflammation, because inflammation is bad for all parts of the body, especially the brain.
Yeah, well said. All right. Well, it was great being with you all. We're trying to give a good overview of the why behind what we do and the various treatments that we offer. And it's great to be with you. And hope be well and stay curious.